said that a wider war in the Middle East is not inevitable. Nevertheless, it is becoming the risk is becoming more acute. If it does break out, what assistance would the United States bring to Israel if there was a wider war, and how much does that detract from the work you're trying to do in the Indo-Pacific?
Yeah, so what you heard me say yesterday is that if Israel is attacked, we certainly will help defend Israel. You saw us do that in April. You can expect to see us do that again. But we don't want to see any of that happen. We're going to work hard to make sure that we're doing things to help take the temperature down and address issues through diplomatic means.
This is my video update on this Wednesday afternoon, July the 31st. Let's talk about some news. And we have to start things off with the escalation in the Middle East. Big time escalation taking place in the Middle East. And yesterday, Israel, they launched a missile strike into Beirut, Lebanon. They hit an apartment building, or a couple of apartment buildings in Beirut, and Israel claimed that they were going after the Hezbollah commander that allegedly launched the missile that hit the football pitch in the Golan Heights, and that's who Israel claimed that they were targeting in this missile strike into Beirut. And then we had the missile strike into Tehran, into the capital of Iran, where Israel, they killed with this missile the Hamas Politburo chief, Ismail Haniyeh. And he was in Iran attending the inauguration of the new president of Iran, Pezeshkian. So he was on a visit to Iran for this inauguration. He was invited to attend this inauguration. And Israel, they found out his coordinates. Allegedly, he was speaking to his son via WhatsApp. This is what I've heard, what I've read. Haniyeh was speaking to his son on WhatsApp, and Israel had placed some sort of software into the WhatsApp communication of Haniyeh, and they got an exact location for him, and they launched a missile and took him out into Iran. They launched a missile into the capital of Iran while Iran was inaugurating their new president. So this was a political assassination. There's no real other way to look at it. I believe the Russian Foreign Ministry, they have said as much. They have said that this was, in a statement, they said that they condemned the killing of Haniyeh, and that he was there on attending an official state event for Iran, and this was a political assassination into Iran. This is a huge escalation. A massive escalation. So Hezbollah is going to have to respond to the strikes into Beirut. That's going to have to warrant a response from Hezbollah. They've said as much. And Iran is going to have to respond to a missile strike into their capital city. And Haniyeh, from what I understand, he was the chief of Hamas's Politburo, but he was also the person negotiating, trying to negotiate with Israel for a ceasefire. And we were making some progress. There was some progress that was being made, but it was always two steps, one step forward, two steps back. But this was the main negotiator. And now he's gone. So Lloyd Austin, he said that the United States will absolutely protect and defend Israel. So Lloyd Austin, he said he was concerned about the escalation in the Middle East, and the United States is trying to prevent an all-out wider war in the Middle East. But he also said that the United States will protect and defend Israel should Israel be attacked. So we see where all of this is going. For what it's worth, Lloyd Austin, he has committed the Biden White House to enter into a Middle East war if we get to that point. But we are going to get now two retaliations, one from Hezbollah and one from Iran. That's going to come. And then when their retaliation comes, Israel's going to have to retaliate back, and eventually we enter into some sort of a wider war in the Middle East. So that's the big news. That is the huge news. Unfortunately, it looks like the war with Iran may be on its way, and I imagine the neocons, they're very happy with this outcome. Looks like they may be getting a war with Iran. We'll see. We'll see. I'm still holding out some hope that maybe we don't get a significant retaliation from at a minimum Iran. Maybe we'll get something along the lines of what happened last time when Iran kind of retaliated into Israel, which was really more of a warning than a retaliation. So maybe we can still avoid a wider war, but there are some forces that are really trying to pull the Middle East into chaos. And with the Middle East being pulled into chaos, the end goal is to pull the United States into the chaos. So that's an update there. WhatsApp. Speaking on WhatsApp, I don't quite understand why, if this is true, why Haniyeh was using WhatsApp. So let's talk about Venezuela. What's going on there? And we had protests yesterday from the opposition candidates with an S, because we have Gonzalez, but the real opposition is Maria Corina. And they held protests. We had some chaos and violence as well throughout Venezuela, protesting the election results. But we also had a big rally from Maduro supporters, a very big rally for the people of Venezuela who are supporting Maduro. And the opposition, they actually published what they believe are the correct results of the election. They say these are audited results as well. And it shows Gonzalez with 67% of the vote, Maduro with 30% of the vote, and the other parties with 3% or whatever. That's what they claim are the official results of the election, according to the opposition, according to Corina and Gonzalez. which when I look at these numbers, no, doesn't feel right. Does not feel right. I refuse to believe that Maduro only had 30% of the vote. 45%, I could accept that. 40%, I could get there, but 30%, no. I'm no expert on Venezuela. I've not been following Venezuela very closely, but even I know that Maduro definitely has. No matter what you think of Maduro, dictator, corrupt, whatever you may think of him, there is no doubt that he had more than 30% support in Venezuela. So I think these results from the opposition, what they claim to be their audited results, audited by who, by the way? Audited by KPMG, Deloitte, BlackRock, I don't know, the Biden White House, who exactly audited, the CIA, who audited these results. But and how are they getting someone to audit these results? It doesn't make any sense. You would have to be the election council to actually have a proper audit with the computers and the papers and everything that's needed to fulfill a proper audit and to match everything up. So I don't know how they're coming out with these audited results. I think what they're doing is they're just using the exit polls that were tabulated by this Edison company, which is a company that has been used, or a firm, an NGO, whatever it is, that has been used by the collective West in the past to provide dubious election data for, I believe, for Ukraine, for Iraq, for other countries where we've seen similar types of regime change operations. Anyway, I think they're using some of this exit poll data from this Edison company, and they're passing it off as audited results. But look, 30%, no. You could hate Maduro all you want. You can hate him all you want. I don't really know much about Maduro, to be quite honest. I really don't. But I know this much. He has more than 40% support in Venezuela. A good 10 to 15% more support. So what they should have come out with, what the opposition, the numbers that they should have showed, would be more akin to 50% for the opposition, 45% for Maduro, and 5% for the other parties. That would have been more believable. This is just my opinion, but I'm telling you, Maduro does not have 30% support. He just doesn't have it. He has more than that. And Elon Musk, man, what is going on with Elon Musk? He is really letting Venezuela, these elections, take him over. I mean, every post on Twitter X that he's putting out there is about the Venezuela elections and how these elections were rigged and stolen and fraudulent and unfair, and the real winner of the elections is Gonzalez, which is laughable because when they say the real winner is Gonzalez, what's really going on is that the opposition is not Gonzalez, but it's this other lady. That's the real opposition. Gonzalez is just a front. That's the funny thing about all of this, is that it's not even about votes for Gonzalez. They're not voting for Gonzalez. They're voting for these other people, this other person, Corina. But Elon, he's letting this thing really take him over. I mean, he really wants regime change in Venezuela. Like really, really bad. A lot of groups and people in the collective West are very upset with the elections in Venezuela. I don't understand why they're so upset about it. Must be all that oil. I don't know. I really don't know. But yeah, the elections were rigged. They were unfair. Maduro is a dictator. He is a dictator. Corrupt dictator, maybe. Maybe he is. Probably. Who knows? Who knows? I don't live in Venezuela. I'm not from Venezuela. Never been to Venezuela. But, there's one way to find out if Maduro is corrupt and a dictator and doing such a bad job in Venezuela. There's one way to find out if he is really, really doing a terrible job in running the country. We can find this out. The only thing that the collective West has to do to expose Maduro for the incompetent dictator that he is to lift all the sanctions on Venezuela. Yeah. That's what the collective West could do in order to expose Maduro. Lift all the sanctions. Because you know what's unfair, you know what's rigged about all of this is the fact that Venezuela is having an election, and everyone is passing judgment on the election in Venezuela, and everyone's passing judgment on the economy in Venezuela and how the country has been progressing over the past 10, 20 years while it's been under sanction and sanctions. And people are calling Maduro all kinds of names while he has had to run Venezuela with all of these sanctions. So the best way to expose Maduro, if you really believe that he's that bad of a president, is to lift the sanctions and see how he performs. See how he runs the country. If he runs the country into the ground after all sanctions have been lifted, then there's no excuse. Even for the people of Venezuela, they have no excuse. Because now the people of Venezuela are a large percentage of people in Venezuela. I imagine 50% of the voters in Venezuela. They can say, you know what, I like Maduro, or I'm not so hot on Maduro, whatever. But I'm going to vote for Maduro because the West is trying to sanction us into oblivion. So I'm going to vote for this guy because of all the sanctions and all the crap that the collective West is giving him and is giving us as Venezuelans. So I imagine there's a large part of the population that votes and supports Maduro because he's the man that is the president of Venezuela, while all of these sanctions are being directed at the country and at the people. So lift the sanctions. Lift all the sanctions and allow Venezuela to compete on a level playing field with everyone else in every other country in the world, every other country in South America. And let's see how they do. And if Maduro really F's things up, then the guy's toast. He is toast. There are no more excuses. That's what Elon should be posting on X. He should be posting on X, not these elections were rigged or something like that. No, he should be posting on X, lift the sanctions, and let's see how Maduro does. That's the way to find out how good or bad Maduro is. Maybe he's a great manager and a great president, and Venezuela becomes super prosperous if all sanctions are lifted, or maybe the guy is terrible and he's a terrible manager and nothing gets better with all the sanctions being lifted, and Maduro and his administration, they steal more and more revenue or money coming into the States. And if that's the case, then goodbye, Maduro. So, yeah, that's my take on all of this. But Elon, he's going hard against Venezuela, really hard. You know what it reminds me of? People voting for Maduro. Here's what it's like. There's a reason why people in Venezuela are going to vote for Maduro, even if they don't like him. It's the same thing as Trump when he gives a speech at a rally and he tells American voters that he's the person standing in the way of the left or the establishment or the deep state going after them and going after their rights. And there are American voters who probably say, you know, I'm not a huge Trump fan, but, you know, the guy's taking a bullet for me. Literally and figuratively. He's standing in the way of the state coming and taking away my rights. And Trump says that all the time. That's what Maduro's kind of doing. Or at least that's a good way to understand the effects that sanctions have on the election process. A lot of people are going to look at Maduro and say, you know, this is the president that's standing between the neoliberal globalists and their sanctions and me, my home, my family, my food. He's the guy standing in the way. So I might as well vote for him. Anyway, enough of that. Let's move on. Let's move on. And I'm going to have to get back to Elon, actually, for the clown world, because Elon in Venezuela, because he got community noted again. But we'll get to that in my clown world segment. So Foreign Policy magazine or publication or neocon, think tank, whatever foreign policy is nowadays, they put out an article with the title, "Would the U.S. consider assassinating Putin? When and why intelligence agencies target foreign leaders and how it often backfires." And this article was published on July 30th, 2024. And this article actually talks about how Israel and Mossad, before we got to the assassination today, they reference in the past how Israel takes out political leaders. They talk about how the U.S. has taken out politicians and political leaders or generals like Soleimani and operations like that. And they ask the question, what about assassinating Putin? This is a long article too. I'm not going to get into reading any of this article because it is long and exhaustive. What Foreign Policy does in this article is they basically talk about all the ways to remove Putin, either through an internal assassination. We're talking an et tu Brutus internal palace intrigue taking out of the Russian president, or an external strike against Putin. And Foreign Policy actually says that with all the technology that we have in the world today, the collective West, if they wanted to, they could take out Putin because they would know exactly where he is at all times, because it's so difficult for a world leader today to hide. And if the West really wanted to, using all of their technology, they could pinpoint where Putin is at any given time and try to take him out. So that's this article from Foreign Policy. It talks about assassinating the Russian president, either by stirring up palace intrigue and getting someone from the FSB or one of his bodyguards or someone in his inner circle to turn against him and take him out, or using technology, pinpointing his location and taking him out like that. The last paragraph, let me read you the last paragraph from this article from Foreign Policy. A very poorly timed article to publish, if you ask me, but they published it. Here's the last paragraph of this article. Russia, on the other hand, as Putin frequently reminds the West in his saber-rattling speeches, threatening nuclear war is another matter. What happens if you fail? As the Wire's Omar Little said, paraphrasing Ralph Waldo Emerson, when you come at the king, you best not miss. So basically, the final paragraph, they're saying that going after leaders in other countries, smaller countries, like going after Iranian generals or leaders is one thing. You don't have to worry so much about a devastating response from Iran, or you can manage the retaliation from Iran. But going after Russia, that's a whole nother ball game, because Russia is a big, powerful country with a lot of nukes, and they could retaliate in a big way to an assassination of their president. So basically, what foreign policy is saying, well, you heard the last sentence. When you come at the king, you best not miss. Is this foreign policy encouraging? Is this article encouraging or advocating some sort of an attempt on Putin? When you come at the king, you best not miss. Dangerous stuff. Reckless, dangerous. From Foreign Policy, reckless, dangerous article that these neocons are publishing. But they're getting desperate, you know. They are very, very desperate and very panicky. Their empire is crumbling. The Russian military pummeled NATO proxy, NATO. The Russian military pummeled NATO in this conflict in Ukraine. I mean, pummeled and embarrassed NATO in this conflict in Ukraine, and they're getting very, very desperate. And they're seeing the rise of BRICS, and they're seeing all of these countries wanting to enter BRICS, and they're getting very jumpy and very panicky, and this is when they're most dangerous. This is when they are absolutely most dangerous. So the EU, they're very upset with Orban. What's new? What's new? The EU's upset with Orban. All right, and the sky is blue. But they're upset with Orban because Hungary, they are easing some of the travel restrictions that have been in place against Russia and Belarus. And the European Union is very upset about the fact that Orban is easing these travel restrictions. I think this is a brilliant move from Orban. It's about time that someone do this, that some country start easing the travel restrictions. And hopefully we'll get other countries doing the same. Maybe Slovakia follows Hungary's lead. And they start rolling back Ursula's Iron Curtain. And let's finish off with Ukraine before we get to my clown world. The front lines in Ukraine continue to crumble, looking very bad for the Zelensky regime. They know that it's crumbling. EU leaders know that Ukraine is losing and has lost. Collective West leaders, the United States, they know that Ukraine has lost. They know that the army is unable to stop Russia, the Russian military, and Zelensky and the Collective West are trying to find some sort of a way to pause or freeze the conflict so that they can figure out a way to regroup and rearm. But it's not happening. Russia is not having any of this freezing, pausing of the conflict, because the Russian military and the Putin administration, they absolutely know that victory is on its way. But the economy in Ukraine is in big trouble. According to the economics minister, in 2025, Ukraine is going to need, at a minimum, $15 billion to make it through 2025. And if he says that Ukraine needs $15 billion to plug up various holes for 2025, what he really means is that Ukraine needs $45 billion. So we're seeing an economic collapse as well. We're seeing a military collapse. Man, it's hot here. Man, is it hot. I got to make my way to the beach. Yeah, and you know, there are a lot of countries that are trying to knock some sense into Zelensky, talk some sense into the man in the green T-shirt. They're telling Zelensky, capitulate, negotiate, take the deal that Putin offered. Take the deal because you're not going to get any better. With each passing day, each passing week, things get worse and worse, and the deal's going to get worse and worse. So take the deal that Putin offered. But Zelensky, he can't take the deal because if he takes the deal, then the Banderites in the west of Ukraine, they are going to liquidate Zelensky, and he knows it. So he's trapped. He's in a box that he put himself into by listening to bonehead Boris Johnson in March 2022. But the foreign minister of Austria, he is now talking about a ceasefire. He is saying that the European Union, they can't ghost Russia. He said ghosting. Ghosting does not work in diplomacy and foreign policy. You can't negotiate a ceasefire without Russia, which is what the European Union is trying to do. You cannot conduct diplomacy without Russia, which is what the European Union is trying to do. You cannot come to a ceasefire by ghosting Russia. That is what the foreign minister of Austria said. He is trying to give Ukraine and Zelensky one last chance to get out of this mess. Orban, he is trying to give Ukraine and Zelensky one last chance to get out of this mess. China is trying to give Ukraine and Zelensky one last chance to get out of this mess. And India, the top foreign minister diplomat of India, Jaishankar, he is trying to give Ukraine one last chance to get out of this mess and to survive this thing. Modi is going to be traveling to Ukraine in a couple of weeks. Jaishankar said that there has to be a negotiation. It's time to negotiate. It's time to get to a ceasefire. Jaishankar is trying to talk some sense into the collective West, into Blinken, who we met the other day, and into Zelensky's empty but also very thick comedian head to take the deal that Putin put on the table so that something of Ukraine can be saved. Everyone outside of the collective West, they are, and the collective West, Austria and Hungary, they are trying to give it one last chance to save Ukraine and to save Zelensky. I think yesterday, Russia, they launched huge drone and missile strikes throughout Ukraine. They took out facilities where mercenaries were staying. They hit storage facilities, weapons facilities. The Ukraine military is just getting absolutely pummeled. So let's do some clown worlds and we'll wrap this video up. And we will start with Elon Musk, who once again decided to comment on a post from Visegrad 24. Elon, why are you believing stuff that's coming from Visegrad 24? Because he did it the other day and he got community noted, and he did it yesterday as well. And he actually believed this post from Visegrad 24, which said Venezuelan army captains Javier and Juan Carlos Nieto Quintero sent a message to all soldiers, and basically Visegrad 24 was reporting that these Venezuelan soldiers, and they're not Venezuelan soldiers, but they were Venezuelan soldiers, but Visegrad 24 is trying to paint the picture that these are soldiers that are defecting to the opposition, and they are urging Venezuelan military to defect as well. And Elon, he said, if this gains momentum, the rightfully elected president will replace the fraudster. Is the rightfully elected president, is that Gonzalez or Maria Corina or Juan Guaido? Pick the person. Who are you talking about when you reference the rightfully elected president? But this was community noted. Community noted once again. They are not active military. Juan Carlos Nieto Quintero was imprisoned and tortured by Venezuelan government security forces. He is now out of Venezuela. And we then got a video from the real Venezuelan military, and they reaffirmed their absolute loyalty and unconditional support to Maduro and the constitutional president of Venezuela. Their commander-in-chief is what the real military said, that being Maduro. Sticking with Venezuela, Maduro, he was downgraded, I guess you would say, from a gray check mark, which indicates on his Twitter X profile that he's a politician. When you have the gray check mark, he was given a blue check mark, which just indicates that he's just a verified account, not a politician. So that's how Twitter is punishing Maduro, with the color of his check mark. I imagine sooner or later they're just going to remove the verification altogether. And finally, we are getting more posts of the Google search results for Donald Trump. When you type in Google search Donald Trump, you are getting results for Kamala Harris. You type in Donald Trump and you get videos and news stories of Kamala Harris and Kamala Harris's rallies. Yeah. Free and fair elections in the United States of America. Anyway, that's the video, everybody. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and Twitter X. And go to the Duran shop. Pick up some limited edition merch, like the t-shirt that I'm wearing today. You'll find a link in the description box down below. Take care.